do that? What made you make that decision? What was going on in your mind at that time that made you think that was the right decision? I wonder. But at times I look back on my life and I know that the Spirit of God has always been with me, because some of the same foolish things I did, I look back on it and I realize that nothing but God could have brought me through that. Nothing but God. Because me and my thinking I know it all, my physical life in some of those situations would have been called. I can remember a time where, you know, when we were coming up, they had guns. They did, but it wasn't like it is now. So when someone maybe have a gun, we might be in the midst of the place, and we didn't even have enough sense to run. I remember when I got old enough to realize that I was in a place that they had guns and they were shooting, I needed to get up out of Dodge, because bullets don't have names. And it's right, or eyes, and it has been proven time and time again. And it's like, what were you thinking? You thought that was fun. You thought the nightlife out in the clubs was it. You go from the clubs to the after-hour joints, having fun, crazy stuff, meeting crazy people, being in the midst of drug deals going down, and you looking at them and don't have enough sense to know you need to get out of Dodge. And you tell me that I wasn't a broken vessel? You telling me that God wasn't carrying me? You telling me that I did that in and of myself? I didn't even know when to go out and to come in. I did that. You better recognize God in your life. You better recognize Him. You better recognize the Holy Spirit when He's moving you to do something or not to do anything. You better recognize Him in your life. You're just a pot. It is His desire. We ought to want our will to line up against His will. It ought to be, Thy will be done in our life. Don't keep praying for the same thing if it's not right. Don't do it. You know right from wrong. You know it. Don't keep talking about, Lord, just give me this or give me that or take me from this until you already know you're in a bad situation. You know it's wrong. Get up out of it. You're the pot. You're the pot. He's trying to shape you. He's trying to mold you, but you don't want to let go. And that's your choice. God gave you a free will. He will never ever go against your will, but He asks that you line your will up with His will. So are you asking Him, what is your will in my life? Are you asking Him that? Or are you going out there again establishing your own righteousness? And then when you get caught out there, you're talking about, well, Lord, some of us do this. We know we're wrong because it was all our decision. And then we get caught out there and then we want to blame it on somebody else. It ain't going to happen. And for those of us who are men and women and children of God, He's going to send anointed laborers to you and He's going to let them tell you, you was wrong. That's what Nathan had to do to David. Y'all remember that? He had to tell David. Nathan had to tell David about Bathsheba. You were wrong. You had her husband killed. You were the man. And when David realized that, he repented of that immediately. He was God awful sorrowful that he took this man's wife. Because see what happens with sin? Sin covers a multitude of sin. You do wrong, you do more wrong. And you do even more wrong. They take a lie to cover a lie to cover a lie. Now you don't even know what the real story was yourself. You don't even know. But you're a broken vessel. If you but will allow God to work in your life. If you but will. Minister Barn, can you get for me 2 Timothy, the 2nd chapter? Start with verse 20. No. Start with verse. Yeah, start with verse 20. Please. 20 down to 22. 2 Timothy, the 2nd chapter, verses 20 through 22.
In a large house there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for noble purposes and some for ignorables. If a man cleanses himself from the latter, he will be an instrument for noble purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work.
So do you understand that? That in the Father's house, in your house, there could be all kind of pottery, right? Made from everything. Pottery could be made from wood. It could be made from clay. It could be gold. It can be silver. But he says here, and that's what he's saying in the 20th verse. And in 21, he says it. He said, if a man cleans himself from the latter, that is ignoble, those things that are not right. For those of us who know God, those things that are not godly. He said, if you cleanse yourself from those things, he will be, meaning you, the pot, will be an instrument for noble purposes. Now you're cleaned up, God can use you. God can use you. And he said, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work. Any good work. Understand this, that you can think God does sometimes harden people's heart, even those that are Christians. And because you continue to want to remain in sin, he'll leave you there. He will harden your heart to the point that you can't see that you're doing wrong, because now you're justifying everything right. He is no longer working with you, trying to convince you it's right. He's going to use you in your hard-heartedness and the consequences of your action. So see, we tend to think God does not bring evil and bad to you. Those are your choices. Those are your choices. And you have got to acknowledge the choices that you made. But in doing that and being a part of that broken vessel, God is not going to reward bad behavior. Come on, we got to get beyond that. You can't be stinking in sin and thinking God is going to condone it. He is not. He is not. Those things that we do that are wrong, they're wrong. They're wrong in God's sight, and he ain't changed his mind from the beginning. He will not change his mind in the end. So you out there doing whatever it is you're doing, sinning, know that God is totally against it. Your choice has allowed you to stay in it or get deeper in it, or whatever the case may be. You don't want to acknowledge it. And see, Minister Barnes, how did you phrase that this morning? Satan makes things appear so simple. How did you phrase that? You know that we don't recognize him.
But that's what he does. It seems so small. You don't even see that,
There's not a person in here, not even the children, that are old enough, probably Dominique is the only exception, that can't say that they did something wrong and didn't know they were doing it wrong. Ain't nobody in here. Even the little kids, to the point that maybe their parents told them to do something and they lied and said they did or didn't, knowing that they hadn't done it. We all understand that. So how is it that